But a horse ride with Fred and Harold is you're training the horse.
Yeah.
You're always teaching the horse. And so here I am trying to hold the horse. I don't know what I'm doing. My saddle is sliding off the side and I'm trying to hang on, and I put my hand on the saddle horn. And Fred, okay, you've already heard how big Fred is. He yells at you, "Get your hand off the horn, greenhorn." And so my hands are off and the saddle's going like this. And I biff it off the side and totally eat dirt. And and I have to get back up. They fix my saddle. Fred comes up beside me as I'm kind of nursing my wounds. So thankful that we're almost back. And he comes up to me on his horse and he goes, "Well, at least you're not a jam tart," and keeps going. And I felt like a million
That's the
bucks.
best compliment.
I don't even know what a jam tart is, but I sure don't want to be one, and I wasn't one.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Efficient by Design podcast. Today's a bit of a unique, different episode in that we have a family as guests here, which is great.
Yeah.
And I would kind of include myself in the family.
Absolutely.
I feel like
For sure should do that.
we've lived together.
Yep.
And shared all kinds of experiences. So I have a regular guest, Dustin, with me, and his wife, Christy. So we've had Christy on for an episode previously with Aaron.
Yep.
So we've had a go at this before. Dustin and I've had several. You guys haven't done this together
No, this
yet.
is
So this will be exciting.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious how this is going to go. And then we have Christy's dad, Harold, Mr. Vreend.
Mister, use that term lightly.
So yeah, it's kind of a fun opportunity to have Harold on because I've heard, we've rubbed shoulders a little bit in the past.
Yes,
I
we
feel like I
have.
was actually to your house at one point
Uh-huh.
because I remember, if this is correct, coming in the front door and seeing a mounted, I don't know if it was a grizzly?
Yeah.
Was there a mount in the front
Yep.
door? Okay, that is right.
it was probably for our wedding.
Yeah.
Not the mount wasn't for your wedding.
No.
But I was there.
You were there.
that was actually Dustin's pleasure, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of talk through a little bit of Harold's history and business and career and interests and a lot of outdoors stuff. And because I'm far more removed from your history than these guys, I'm going to kind of pass off to Dustin and Christy primarily to kind of ask questions and tell some stories. And we're also enjoying some nice beverages while we visit here. So Dustin, what have we got?
We have some special Crown Royal. We had to go with some Canadian whiskey.
Yeah.
So Dad, see, I had to get, in marrying Christy, I had to get, pretty quickly schooled on, an appropriate Dutch beverage, which would be rye and Pepsi.
Or Coke.
Yeah, and in Dad's case, it's Pepsi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll do Coke sometimes?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
If there's
But
nothing
yeah.
else.
Yeah, if there's nothing else.
So Canadian whiskey being rye, we have Crown Royal. It's a special edition, winter wheat edition, which is really nice.
It's really good.
And then we have some 40 Creek. I can't remember what it's called. It was recommended by the guy in the liquor store because we actually couldn't get what Dad's favorite was. They didn't carry the Pendleton Midnight, and they didn't carry the Gibson's Venerable.
Anywhere nearby.
No.
Yeah, we're just
No, those two are definitely far more popular in Alberta than here in BC. But yeah.
So yeah, as far as kind of an outline in that, what do you kind of start with going back to, kind of your childhood and earlier, I guess, because you've also built your own home. You were a wildlife biologist and
Yes.
hunting guide and then owner or partner with ITB,
Yes.
the Intercontinental Truck Body. That's that sound right?
Yep.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. And that was, I remember this. So we talked about that a bit in the episode with Christy, where she sheared off part of a finger, working on some presses and machines. And that was a facility where they produced truck bodies, and the kind of signature design was that there was no exterior rivets, right? All the panels interlock.
Aluminum panels that interlock.
And was that right? Because in that episode, I asked some questions about that, which you were not 100% sure on. Was the presses and the machinery from Europe? It was stuff that you guys brought in that was unique?
The design
The design
of
was
the
okay.
snap panel. Yes,
Okay.
that came from Europe.
Okay. So why don't you kind of start walking through the timeline a little bit? We
Mm.
can get into the history a bit.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
a bit of a timeline to span, right? From
Uh-huh.
childhood to present day.
Not that long. He's not that old.
No, that's true.
No.
That's true. We won't specify.
Yeah, he doesn't look that old. Come
No.
on.
You know, I was going to say my only claim to fame for being here was my daughter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah,
We'll
she's a
see
big
what
deal.
we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
I might change my mind on that.
But we wanted to hear you talk about where you grew up.
Yeah, I love the stories from, your to me, what seems like such a crazy childhood. I mean, so different back then. And you were a bit of a wild spirit, and you kind of got yourself in trouble here and there.
Yes.
Occasionally, yes.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
So when and where?
Born in Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah, I lived there, went to university. So I left Edmonton when I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you take in university?
Biology.
In a particular discipline of biology? Like
Wildlife.
Okay.
Zoology. Yep.
Mhm.
So, from there.
At the U of A.
At the U of A.
Yeah.
But how did you even get into that? So
Yeah.
you were always interested in wildlife, and
Yes.
how did that start?
Oh, man, as a kid growing up, I was always running out to the woods and chasing birds. And I guess as the years went by, I just got real interested in birds, and
Okay.
I was looking for nests and robbing them, and I started an egg collection, and there was, I think, about 4 of us guys that were doing the same thing. And
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how old were you when you were doing that?
Junior high. So
Okay.
Oh man. Okay.
yeah,
So in junior high, so our youngest,
Is junior
almost
high.
junior high,
Yeah. And he is in
and
junior
you're
high.
collecting birds' eggs, and you know the calls the birds are making. You can identify the bird by the call, by the egg, and you collect them and trade them. So the equivalent would be Pokemon now.
I guess
Collecting
yeah.
And
Pokemon cards.
you have to find them.
You
all
have
that
to find
Pokemon
them.
Go, like all
Yeah.
that. It's like the same thing.
I tried. I tried that with Travis, and
Yeah.
no, it's not the same. No.
Yeah.
So briefly, I just kind of want to know what that experience was like. You go off, you notify the bird that you want to collect the egg, and you climb the tree,
Climb the tree,
you steal the egg,
steal the egg.
and then what do you do with the egg? Because you can't, it'll go rotten.
It'll rot. So
Yeah.
you actually poke 2 holes in the egg
Okay.
and then blow it out.
Blow it out. Okay.
And you hope
That you don't
that
break
it's
it.
fresh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I guess there'd be a bird in it.
Yeah, there could be a bird in it. But
Right.
Oh yeah.
So then obviously your interest in birds then translated into interest in wildlife in general,
yes.
I'm assuming. So did your interest in birds change into more of a passionate interest for other animals in particular, or has that always been kind of a kind of the source of your interest that you've kind of stuck with?
No. Of course, I did get a job with Fish and Wildlife, and bird management was a big part of that. I did lots of work with Ducks Unlimited, but looking at different game species, pheasants and sage grouse and sharptail, and monitoring them, watching them on their dancing grounds. But I think my interest changed more to mammals.
And what kind of made that? What sparked that interest then to switch over to mammals and get into those?
I liked hunting them.
I was wondering when that was going to come up.
And when did you first start hunting?
That would have been with my dad.
Mm.
As a teenager, we would go out and we'd hunt ruffed grouse.
Mhm.
He had the shotgun; he could shoot the grouse, and I had to pack everything out that he shot. He wouldn't let me use the gun yet. And then finally, there was rabbits. There were a lot of rabbits out there too.
Mm.
He would let me shoot the rabbits, not the grouse. But
Mm.
I think when I was in grade 12, my brother-in-law Russell
Mm.
invited me on a moose
Yeah.
hunt,
Oh, okay.
and that's where it all started,
The
I guess.
passion. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's interesting that people that Sometimes you'll view people who hunt as people who don't care about our natural environment, but the reality is that virtually all the conservation that takes place and care for wildlife and all that is by people who are hunters and are out in that domain all the time. Those are people taking care of it the vast
Yeah.
majority of the time, and,
Yeah.
and
That
understand
actually
it.
was a question that I was thinking about that I wanted to ask you is I'm assuming that you've experienced the stereotype, or I guess the question is, what are the stereotypes that you've experienced being a biologist and a hunter? Because people make a
Yeah.
lot of assumptions.
That's a bit of a paradox.
It
that
is a bit of a-
combination.
You think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, not. I think if you look at wildlife, the first thing you have to remember is it's a product of the environment they live in, right? And it's renewable,
Mhm.
managed properly. Yeah, there will always be that wildlife as long as you maintain their habitat.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. Like when we lived on Pender Island, I know in Victoria there was a lot of controls in place in the city for like rabbits, because rabbits were just going crazy there.
Yeah.
But I had also heard some controls in place for Canada geese. Is there any? Because they're a protected species. So what do the controls look like there for their populations and managing like a protected?
Whatever they're trying is not working. There are geese everywhere.
know.
Yeah,
It's
that's
true.
right.
That's true.
Snow geese, the same thing. I know when I was a biologist, snow geese they had a kind of a special status. But since that time, their numbers have exploded, and they've opened up the seasons wide open.
What's the difference between a snow geese and a Canada goose?
Canada goose, well, you know what a Canada goose is.
Yeah.
Snow geese are the white ones with the black wingtips.
Okay.
They nest in the Arctic.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've seen many of those, or I haven't realized that
You're off of their migration route.
Okay, so
go
they don't come through here.
No, Alberta, Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Because I know on the island, so I grew up for about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years in the Gulf Islands. And on the Gulf Islands, surprisingly, there's actually a lot of deer. And there was hunting seasons there because the islands can get overrun with these, I mean, they're kind of dwarf small deer. They don't
Yeah.
get very
Yeah.
big, but there can be lots of them.
Yeah, and they can be really a nuisance because there's
Yeah.
no predators.
Well, I was going to say, the other crazy thing is the predators that do show up from time to time would
The
be
cougars.
like
Yeah,
mountain lions.
They like swim.
And that's
island
the
to
bizarre
island.
thing. So
I
you're on
know.
an island,
Yeah.
and they're like they get rid of the cougar, but then people who are like boating between Vancouver Island and the mainland, you hear the odd story of someone's out in the ocean fishing, and a cougar swims by them,
Yeah.
and they swim up. They can sense
Yeah.
where the deer are, and they show
Yeah.
up on these small islands, and
Yeah.
then they're hunting deer.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're on this small island, like Thetis, you drive across the whole island in
Yeah.
what, half an hour?
Yeah.
Tiny island, and this small community, and like several deer, and then you're hearing about a cougar that's prowling on the island.
Yeah, it's quite unnerving.
Super sketchy. Yeah, it seems super
Yeah.
weird.
I remember your dad hunting the black-tailed deer there.
Yep.
Yep. And you have to, certain rules, you weren't allowed to use certain rifles. You had to
Yeah.
use a shotgun.
Yeah, with a slug, which
Yeah.
he never liked that because it's not as accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we as a kid, my dad, we grew up eating the meat that my dad would hunt, and there was a few years were like good years where he'd get a bear, a deer, and a moose for a few years in a row, and we'd obviously use all the meat, and Dad had a Marlin 30-30. He still got it, lever action. It's like the coolest gun. Like as a kid, I'm like, that's
Yeah.
just like the Cowboys Western with the lever action. It was so awesome, and that was
those
his.
are relics. Yeah.
It was great.
Hmm.
So that was he still got it. Maybe I'll get it someday, actually. But that was his hunting rifle. So then moving to the island, because we were in the Okanagan here, not far from where we are now, when he was doing the majority of his hunting, we moved to the Gulf Islands, and now he's got to hunt with a shotgun and a slug. It's lower velocity. It's not going to sail off the island into some other island, and yeah, hunting with a shotgun is unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, my first hunt with my brother-in-law, Russell, of course, I'm in grade 12, and I don't have a lot of money. My dad had a rifle, and it was 303 Enfield, the old Army rifle with the peep sights. And
Mhm.
it was my first big game hunt. So I got, okay, this rifle is going to work.
Mhm.
And I'd look through it. So, yeah, you just got to put the pin on the, whatever you're shooting at and pull the trigger. Anyway, so, yeah, we went out end of November hunting, and I think it was the second day out. I was walking down a cut line, and all of a sudden there's a moose running through the willows. Oh. And they had an 11 shot clip.
Hmm.
That probably illegal.
Yeah.
It is now.
Yeah.
But it was full of bullets. And the moose was running, and I just opened up, and the moose kept running, and I kept shooting until finally I put enough lead in the air that he finally ran right into one of my bullets.
Yeah.
But I did run out of bullets, and
Yeah.
it wasn't dead yet.
Hmm.
So I said, well, now what do I do?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Anyways, Russell came along and
Yeah.
finished it
helped you
off.
out.
But
Yeah. That's a
yeah.
pretty
know,
common story.
yeah,
Like for
but
new
it's-
hunters. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
That Lee Enfield, the peep sights, that didn't last very long for me. It would be, I don't know, probably a framer trying to build a house with a ball peen hammer or without an Akribis
Yeah.
tool
Yeah.
belt.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, you better have good equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your hunting rifle of choice now? Not that I know anything about guns, but maybe
No.
people listening do.
I have a 270 Remington. I'm not a gun nut. I have just one rifle.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a good all around gun.
You'd probably appreciate the one that I got from my my wife's grandfather. There was really no one who was into wilderness skills and outdoor and hunting stuff when he was kind of in his last days, and so I was fortunate enough to visit with him and inherit a bunch of his
Yeah.
firearms that he had. And there's a 270 Ruger that I was fortunate enough to end up with, which is a beautiful firearm. So amongst all that hunting, so that's the beginning of your kind of hunting, I would say career, but interest in getting into things. And then that's something that you started a lot of years ago
Yep.
and have done since. So I know a lot of people who I know who are like really avid, good hunters, they all started off at some point not doing what they're doing. You go through your core course and you kind of learn all the to-dos and to-don'ts and understand the guidebooks and everything. And then you got to get out there and do it. And it's an intimidating thing to get started with.
Oh yeah.
And there's lots of stories of people who are, very good avid hunters now that started off in ways that, in stories like you talked about, it's a scary, your adrenaline is
Yeah.
flowing and you're trying to provide for your family and doing something that you haven't done before. It's a scary thing.
Yep.
So through that time, I'm sure there's countless stories
Countless.
that come through that.
Probably, yeah. I did just love sheep hunting,
Okay.
and yeah, you learn by trial and error. I'm sure, and my best friend Fred, you'll hear a little more about him, but yeah, we got together hunting sheep, and we did that for 40 years. But you start, and first it was with a backpack. Oh, that was a lot of work. Finally,
Time out for a second, because for those of you watching, listening who aren't familiar with sheep hunting, this is different than going out for an afternoon.
oh yeah,
Like
Yeah.
this is a week excursion, and you're
Oh.
off in the middle of nowhere.
yeah,
And it's not a sheep like a sheep
A
in a
sheep.
pen.
no,
What is it?
Like a bighorn.
a bighorn sheep. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, start off with a backpack, and that was a lot of work. And we got one horse between the two of us, and we used it to pack our camp in, and things just kept growing. We got a wall tent and another horse and a pack horse, and we put on a lot of miles after those sheep. I think initially, if you walked 5 miles in the mountains, you figured that was okay. But if you could go 15 miles, you're going to see a lot of sheep.
Mhm.
And I think we just probably ran by more sheep than
Mm.
we saw. But, over the course of 40 years, you figure them out.
Mm.
I should tell you about my first trip to the Northwest Territories,
Mm.
Mackenzie Mountains.
Mm.
That was back in 1980. And we were going after. Were you
The year
born
you were
yet?
born.
Yeah, the year I was born.
I was born in 79, just barely. I just existed by then.
Oh,
Just dated
yeah,
me.
anyways,
Thanks.
Sorry.
they had
Her
opened
birthday
up,
was yesterday,
yeah,
2 days ago.
Wednesday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're on a
Yeah.
sheep hunt in
Yeah.
1980.
1980.
backpack sheep hunt,
Mhm.
hunt
Yeah.
in the North Mackenzie Mountains, and they had opened the Mackenzie Mountains up to outfitters, mid 70s. So not a lot of people had hunted it for many years. Fred and I went, and yeah, we were operating on a shoestring budget, so we the outfitter made us guides so that we could guide each other, and got a map, and he said, you're going to get dropped off at this lake and you can hunt. And
By float plane or?
Yeah, it was a float plane,
Okay.
little,
Mm.
and it was up around 6,000 feet, that lake. So
Hmm.
pretty spot. We got dropped off, and yeah, we had a great trip. 5 days after we were there, or 7 days, a little Cessna flies over, and a little parachute comes out the window.
What?
Yeah, it was the outfitter.
Okay.
So that we run over, and it was a good thing we were in camp. We grabbed the parachute, and there was a map on it, and a little X on the map. And he said, the float plane is not going to pick you up here anymore. You have to go to my main camp.
Okay. Which is how far away?
Well, 25 miles.
25 miles.
Yeah.
Through, and there's not ATV trails or trails, those
No.
game trails and
Well,
mountains.
we'll follow the creek down. We had, and it was our first trip.
Hmm.
We had so much stuff.
Hmm.
Like, we each had cameras, and back then the cameras were big.
Yeah.
We had telephoto lenses.
Hmm.
We each had a spotting scope. We each had guns and duplication of everything.
And enough.
Boots and more boots and clothes and
Food and
food. And,
Well, yeah, because you're planning to be out there for how long?
10 days.
So bringing provisions for that amount of
Yeah.
time, that's a
Yeah.
lot of gear you need.
And no
Oh,
horses.
No horse.
No horse. No, it was
Yeah.
backpack.
So you could physically carry, each of you could carry everything that you had with you, or do you have to do more than one trip?
We could physically carry each about 130 pounds, or at least I could.
Okay.
We
was this the one where your pack was so heavy that like
No,
once you
don't blow it.
Yeah.
Let them go.
Actually, we had 2 packs. We had a good backpack and then a Trapper Nelson for hunting. So luckily, we had 2 packs, and when we found out we had to walk 25 miles with everything, and we had each shot a caribou by that time.
So you're
And
packing meat.
And a doll sheep.
Oh my goodness.
That's so the horns.
So
and the
2
capes.
caribou and a doll sheep.
2 doll sheep.
2. Oh my
so
word.
do you have the hide as well
Yeah,
and the horns?
yeah.
And then
Basically the whole animal.
the whole animal. And we had the meat in a snowbank on the lake where we thought we were going to get picked up. I said, "Oh, how are we going to do this?"
These are probably external frame backpacks.
Yeah.
And like you dragging a sled with you or anything?
No. So, anyways, we strapped the 2 pack. We each had 2 packs. We strapped 1 pack on top of the other, and then threw the antlers and the sheep horns on top. And then they said, "Well, we got 25 miles to go. We might as well give ourselves a couple of days."
Yeah.
Anyways, so I crawled into my pack. Fred, he's like 230 pounds, and there's no fat on him. It's all muscle.
How tall is he?
I'm 5'10".
That's a big guy.
He's a big guy.
He's really big.
Sheesh.
He's
Like-
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, he crawled into his pack, and he was grunting, and he could stand up. I propped mine up on a rock, and I crawled into it, and then I tried to stand up. This pack won't move. So Fred, he got behind me, pushed me over, I landed on all fours. And then I could get upright almost.
Yeah.
I had to bend over a little bit.
Yeah.
And we had 25 miles to go.
Oh my goodness.
Sheesh. That's a long ways.
It would be like putting Nellie on my back and walking a long, long way.
A long, long way.
Along no trails. Like you're following a
Bushwhacking.
creek
Yeah.
and you're bushwhacking, going down game
Oh, yeah.
trails is the only.
Yeah.
And you're probably seeing wildlife all over the
Oh,
place.
it was a wonderful trip. We saw, 800 caribou that trip.
Mm.
Lots of
Didn't
sheep.
you have to make it across some pretty sloppy?
We did, yeah. We were getting close to where the X on the map was,
Mm.
and there was a symbol for bog between the creek and the main camp.
Mm.
And
Oh, no.
we could go all the way around the bog or try cross over.
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
eh? It was a lot shorter.
Yeah, with 130 pounds on your back.
Going across the bog. And at first it wasn't bad. And
Mhm.
then we got to the middle and, oh man, you're
Oh
up
my
to your
goodness.
knees. And
Was there moose sign in there too?
there's moose there, caribou, grizzlies. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I was within a mile of the end of the bog, and that's where I powered out.
Mm.
Fred, he got to the river
Yeah.
where the camp was, and then he came back and
Mm.
helped me out.
You would have been mid 20s,
28.
28.
But just to give you an idea of kind of the engine that's in Fred. So he got wind. So Dad was just telling me this the other day. He got wind that the who was it? The Eskimos, the Edmonton Eskimos, now the Edmonton Elks. Is that who it was? The record for bench press was 300
Oh, Edmonton Eskimo. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
the
Elks now. The record was bench pressing 300 pounds 15 times or something
No,
like that.
I think it was 25 reps. Or
25
something.
reps.
It was over 300 pounds.
And so Fred decided he heard that was the record from someone in his family.
But he's in his 60s by this time.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in his 60s. He doubles it. So he does 300 pounds over 50 times.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
he
goodness.
was so proud of himself.
Just for fun.
As he should have been. My goodness. That's insane.
I was in his shop the day after
Oh
he
my
did
goodness.
that, and he was sitting in his chair. I can't move anymore.
Did he train for ages to do it? Or did he just,
he's been lifting weights his whole life.
that's insane.
Yeah.
He,
I mean,
didn't,
I
he
got-
didn't train for 55 reps, but he did it.
Yeah.
That's
It
craziness.
was so crazy.
Well, and to give a little bit more backstory, Fred is a taxidermist, and you help him in his. When you say shop, you're talking about the taxidermy
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, give us a little story into how you got into taxidermy, because you're the one who taught Fred taxidermy.
Well, no, I did not teach him.
Okay, so give us the story on your experience with taxidermy and your connection with Fred and his work.
Well, we both worked for taxidermist in Lethbridge at that time, Albert Hart. I was doing part-time work at night, and he was doing the same. And I guess that's how we met.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Time
Just
out.
do
Sorry.
it, Luke.
Oh, sure. That's fine.
I'm making noise.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So you met both working at the same place.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then he bought that taxidermy business from the owner and started on his own. And then
Okay.
I continued to do part-time work for him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And so that was, what year would that have been when you started working there and met Fred?
I was still single.
Come on, Mom. What's the
What
date?
year did we get married again? I don't want to get this. I want to get this right. 76. So it would have been before 76. He was 19 at the time, 18.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're working with him. How'd you become friends? Just through spending time together at the shop, or what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got into sheep hunting, and it just
Yeah.
grew from there.
Yeah.
Because it's hard in a little short podcast to give people the idea of exactly the scale
It's true.
of how much you've hunted and your relationship with Fred. So I have a little tiny story that will help. So you've taken me on a few trips.
Yeah.
Just riding horse out into the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And so you took me once out to, I'm trying to remember the name of the mountain.
Chimney Rock.
Chimney Rock. And so I'm not a horseman and I am not even an outdoorsman. But I was so excited to go on the trip because it meant being able to spend time with you and Fred and be out on horses and in that beautiful country. So we're out Chimney Rock. Give us an idea of whereabouts that is.
But before we went on that trip,
Yes.
we did go on a little training ride.
A training
Remember
ride.
a
You want to
training
tell
ride?
that story? Because it's making me look like an idiot. Perfect.
You have to tell
He
it.
was-
You have to tell it.
You were on Mac, weren't you?
I think so. Yeah.
And
Mac is a horse.
He's a horse,
Okay.
and he's
Good clarification.
you get into him, and it's like you're in a rocking chair on a lope. Anyways, Dustin and I went out for a ride just to get him used to being in the saddle.
Yeah.
Then we started going on a canter and a little bit faster, and I'm behind Dustin, and his legs are flopping all over, and his arms are going like this. And he's trying to fly out of the saddle. I think,
Yeah.
Dustin, just
Keep it tight.
keep it tight.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
they would yell at me
Oh,
because he'd say, "You want to go for a horse ride?" And so it would be, okay, I'm thinking a trail ride.
Mhm.
But a horse ride with Fred and Harold is you're training the horse.
Yeah.
You're always teaching the horse. And so they would say stupid stuff to me like, and I'm holding the horse. They'll say, "You hold that horse and don't let him run, and we're gonna bolt, and you stay still until we stop, and then you need to run past us, and we'll hold the horses and wait
Hmm.
and let you go past."
yeah.
And so here I am trying to hold the horse. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm trying to hold it while they bolt off. And I'm thinking I'm left out here in the prairie by myself trying to get this horse to listen to me. It knows I'm horrible. It hates that I'm on his back. And they go, and now it's my turn to go. So my saddle is sliding off the side. And I'm trying to hang on. And I put my hand on the saddle horn.
Yeah.
And Fred, okay, you've already heard how big Fred is. He yells at you, "Get your hand off the horn, greenhorn." And so my hands are off and the saddle's going like this. And I biff it off the side and totally eat dirt. And and I have to get back up. They fix my saddle. And it's back on and more training. And you go around a bush and the horse would hop and be spooked about the bush.
Yeah.
And they'd say, "No, you got to keep going around the bush. A few more times around the bush." And it is no trail ride.
Yeah.
So the preparation, we did that one trip up to, what was the name of that one? The very first one that we went on, the big one. That was
Chimney Rock?
No, I'm thinking there was Chimney Rock, which yes, that was the first one. But the
Mhm.
second one we did into the Rockies further in was to, remember we go to the lake and then we got off the horses
Oh
and
yeah.
hiked to the
That's
top.
where you took me that one time.
Okay, Grizzly Lake.
Grizzly Lake,
Yeah.
yeah. So Chimney Rock was first, and we were having to go through little rivers and bogs, and I'm terrible. And so the horse is, I don't know, it was up to its shoulders in the muck, and so it's jumping through the muck, and I grabbed the saddle horn, and Fred's like, "Hands off, greenhorn." And so I'm trying to like listen, and we make our way through, and we get to a spot to stop and have a snooze. And they actually mean have a snooze. Everybody gets off and lays in the grass and has a snooze. And they hobble the horses, which is you put what looks like handcuffs on the front legs of the horse so it can graze around and doesn't get too far. It just kind of, and we're snoozing away. And Fred's son and daughter-in-law are snoozing out by the trees. And what happened? The horse started getting Western.
Smurfy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Smurfy.
Smurfy.
Yeah.
I think it might have been the first time she had hobbles on,
Okay.
Mm.
and that horse she thought she was a human more than a horse. But anyways, we hobbled the horse, and it was the first time. And once they realized they got hobbles on,
Mm.
they either just freeze up or they go crazy.
Mm.
This one, went a little crazy, didn't it?
Oh, and the nap got interrupted, and
Yeah.
everybody's jumping out of the way as the horse is pounding around. And we ended up, you get to this most spectacular view. It was incredible. It was too steep for the horses, so we left them, hiked to the top, and it's just spectacular. And I was taking photos from the top, and you basically see from the Rockies over the foothills to the prairie. Just extraordinary. And we're up there, and we make our way back down. And I remember we're coming back to the truck, and Fred comes up beside me as I'm kind of nursing my wounds. So thankful that we're almost back. And he comes up to me on his horse and he goes, "Well, at least you're not a jam tart." And he keeps going. And I felt like a million
Like that's the
bucks.
best compliment.
I don't
you
even
could
know
have
what a
ever
jam tart
received.
is, but I sure don't want to be one. And I wasn't one. And the second ride we did up to Grizzly Lake.
Before we leave that story,
Okay.
it was a summer ride, and it was a long ride. I think we went 30 miles,
Yeah.
probably. And I think before we left, summer ride, I suggested that you should probably wear long johns.
Yes, you did. And I
But
didn't.
Dustin, he's tougher than me. He
Do you
did
get
not wear.
chafed? Is that why?
He did not wear long johns.
And I was
What
hurting.
happened?
All the hair on the inside of your legs balls up into little balls.
It's like the motion of like rubbing in a
Yeah.
circle.
And
Do you remember that in school? You get someone to move
Yeah.
their legs and you
Yeah.
go in circles.
Exactly.
yeah,
His
That's what happened.
exactly. But like
Both
all
his
the
legs were
inside.
like that.
Okay, and so here it is. We get into the truck on the way home, and I'm thinking, honestly, for sure, I'm thinking it's bleeding on the inside. Because
Yeah, your boots should have been full of blood.
Yeah.
you think
That's how it
you
feels.
think
That
the inside
bad.
of your legs are just torn to shreds, and you drop your pants and nothing.
There's nothing there.
There's
There's nothing there.
Nothing. You should
It's-
not be complaining.
So they made fun of me that whole trip, and it was wonderful. And then we did the Grizzly Lake trip.
Yeah, I
and
think
it-
you might have worn long johns on that.
Yeah,
the
the
next
second
trip I
time.
wore
Yeah,
the long
yeah.
johns. But we went up. So yeah, to give you an idea, the reason I started this whole long story is to give you an idea of the scale of Fred and Harold's relationship and all the years they've spent hunting together. So I'm only on the scene after decades of them doing adventures. And so I go on this trip up to Grizzly Lake, which is basically a small lake at the bottom of this spectacular cliff face. And we leave the horses there, a few of us, and we hike up the ridge and go to the top of that just to see a view. And you're in the Rocky Mountains. And I get to the top and I have asthma. So I'm huffing and puffing and having to take breaks, and I'm out of shape. And so I'm trying to get there. And Fred's son's ahead of me and daughter-in-law ahead of me, and their dogs with them, and we're making our way slowly. And I'm sitting down and trying to catch my breath. And Fred comes up behind, and I can see him making his way up the ridge. And his son, Ben, says, "Oh, Dad's on his way." Now it looks like he's doing you a favor. He's got his pants on. Because sometimes he just hikes up there in his undies. And he's got his shirt off, and he doesn't stop. No stopping. He comes all the way, I can watch him come all the way up, come across the ridge, and it's shale, and it's like cliffs, and it's pretty sketchy, and he just makes it up, and he's hardly huffing and puffing.
Yeah.
And he stands up there, and he's just looking, and he goes, "You know, you should know that me and your father-in-law, our boots have pretty much hit just about everything you can see." And I'm sitting there looking around like Lion King's Mufasa's kid going, "Whoa, everything the light touches."
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, you can see over the Continental Divide right there. And just recognizing that there's been so many decades of adventures and mishaps. And every once in a while, I've had the privilege of being able to have a whiskey with both Harold and Fred and to hear a few stories. And there's some beauties. But the extent for the listeners is that there's decades and decades of friendship, forged through stories like you shared, struggling through the wilderness, and really scary ones where, things were getting real sketchy. And Fred's phrase is always, things got a little Western.
Yeah.
And when we came back from the Grizzly Lake trip, the horses always pick up and want to run when they recognize that they're close to the trailers.
Hmm.
And I'm useless on the horse. So I'm just trying to hang on. And I'm kind of just in behind Dad, and Fred's behind me. And we get across the river, and we're coming up to the trailer, and they can tell, so they're starting to go faster and faster. And then it gets really steep as we need to get up to the road where the trailer is. And Dad's in front of me. Your horse goes up and starts sliding one way, the other, and it goes up on hind legs and turns around, and I don't know what to do. So I'm just praying, closing my eyes and praying I get through. And then Fred's bolting through past us, and I'm just hoping that I can make it through to the end. And it's just blazing through the trees and trying to dodge branches. And we get to the top where the trailer is. And I'm so happy that we made it back, and I didn't fall off, and I'm still alive. And Fred goes to the trailer, opens the door, pulls out a cooler, opens it up, throws me a beer, sits down, and he just goes, "Oh, there's a lot more holy shits there than I expected."
Yeah, all in a day's work. And
Yeah.
we had a hunter in the Wilmore, and Fred and I, probably spent over 1,000 nights in a wall tent together. And
What's
who
a wall?
knows,
What's a wall tent?
a big tent.
Like
Big where you can
canvas.
put a stove in
Okay.
there, you can stay warm.
Okay.
Canvas.
Stand
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
cots, and kind of a
Glamping a little
luxury for a sheep hunter, I guess,
Yeah.
rather than a little pup tent.
Okay.
Oh, anyways, yeah, we had a sheep hunter in the Wilmore, and we had, Fred's got good horses. I had a pretty good horse. The hunter was on a horse that he was kind of herd bound. He did not want to leave the other horses.
Okay.
Anyways, we had gone for a good ride that day, and we were kind of late in the day. So we're going pretty good on this little trail
Mhm.
back to camp. And you're weaving, and there's branches hanging over. And I had no trouble. Fred had, of course, he's up there. I'm just holding back a little bit because the hunter's right behind me. Anyways, he stopped on a hill, and I got up there and stopped. And oh, here's the third horse. I said, Fred, he's got no hunter on him.
Oh, no.
So Fred, I went walking back, and I found him. He's crawling on the trail.
Why is he crawling?
He could not breathe. He got the wind knocked out of him. There was
Oh.
a snag hanging over the trail, and Fred and I, we managed to duck under it. The branch caught him right on the chest, pulled him
Oh.
right
Oh,
out of the
no.
saddle.
Oh, man.
Oh, anyways,
Yeah. But there's been, it's tough not to tell all the great stories.
yeah.
But I think it's important to say which trophies that you have. What's one that you're most proud of, and one that comes with the greatest stories?
Yeah. Trophies being the taxidermy.
The taxidermy, and you do
yeah.
all your own taxidermy.
And I think people, because I grew up in a home with my dad as my dad, it was very normal for me to live in a home with
Dead animals.
dead animals everywhere on the walls. And then to invite somebody over who maybe had never been to our home, that I would never think to prepare them, that when they
Yeah.
walk in the front door, or say if a family comes with kids, that when they walk in the door, that there's like a fully stuffed like brown bear or grizzly bear.
Mhm.
They kind of freak out a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
And they're just like, or just like really in awe. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's not like a normal thing.
So while you're on that topic,
Yeah.
what was your mom's like introduction to this world? Was this like commonplace for her previously, or was this like a new thing? Oh, this is what I'm right into.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really speak for her, but it wasn't really.
She's off camera right
Yeah,
now.
she's just shaking her head. I kind of, you almost need to pull her on here to hear her side of the story. But she's not necessarily like.
Did she ever go hunting with your dad?
Oh no.
Yes, she
Okay.
did.
What?
Yeah. She
Okay,
did.
I didn't know this. I would have said no because.
In fact, you may have been there. Did you ever go pheasant hunting with
I don't.
me? And
I don't think so.
maybe not.
I was too
Anyways,
scared of
I
guns.
did take your mother
Okay.
pheasant hunt. I bought her.
I'm assuming this did not go well.
I bought her like a 20 gauge Ithaca over and under, a beautiful
Yeah.
shotgun for her birthday.
Sorry, that's a little bit insulting, but she's
This was a
she's-
gift for you, for her, for you, I think.
No.
No.
It's from me to her, and
Yeah.
and I did take her out pheasant hunting with the boys.
Okay.
She may have lasted an hour.
She was out with you once. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to
She did
derail you.
not. She
No,
did
that's
not, She
okay.
did not ever fire that Ithaca.
That's too bad.
It is. Anyway, but because it was the perfect birthday present.
My
how would you
mother-
compare that?
On my next birthday, I got a dress that fit her perfectly.
You learned your lesson. That's great.
Yeah, I did.
My mother and my father are as different as the East is from the West, but they just work. It just works.
Okay, so you bring friends over,
Yeah.
and there's scary things
yeah.
in your house.
Yeah. Scary things.
Well, and to
Okay.
to give some scale,
yeah, give some scale.
you've got
Well,
go ahead.
After I graduated high school, when we basically right before we got married, my parents bought a new house. And I think one of the main reasons this house was purchased was because there is a large vaulted living room that is perfect for many taxidermy. Many. And it is full.
So, Dad, how many
you asked
trophies
me-
at home?
Enough.
Enough.
Maybe-
Okay,
no,
yeah.
actually, maybe not enough.
Maybe not enough.
I might have to go.
You might
hunting
have to go
somewhere.
hunting some more.
But you
Okay,
asked
yeah.
me which one
Yeah.
is
Okay, yeah.
special.
Yeah.
And I would say it's my bighorns.
Mm.
I've shot a few, but and that's just because of the effort it takes.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
For every
Mm.
bighorn I shot, it would take me about 7 years between
Mm.
Wow.
kills, and I
Mm.
estimated about 2,000 miles hiking in the mountains up and down for
Mm.
each bighorn.
Okay, so for those of you watching and listening, in the domain of people who hunt and take it seriously, sheep hunting, as far as I understand it, kind of that discipline kind of holds the top spot.
Yes.
And there's was it 3 sheep that are the ideal ones to get? The big 3, is that correct?
Actually, there's a big 4.
Big 4,
there's
okay.
and the bighorn is the toughest one.
Okay. So
Dull-
what are the
dull
sheep?
Dull
Okay.
sheep,
Yep.
stone sheep, northern BC,
Mhm.
and the desert bighorn, which I think BC has some on the Fraser and a few spots, but most of the desert are Mexico and southern states.
So what have you got, and what would you don't have them all yet, do you?
No, I have not shot a desert bighorn, but
And
I've got
that's-
a doll and a stone.
Okay. And is that still you have hopes to finish your big 4? Is that
No,
you're okay with not?
I've had so many memories sheep hunting. Yeah.
Hmm.
You know, well, you heard 2,000 miles of
Yeah.
walking and one sheep every 7 years.
Because to get a
It's-
draw
the
for those sheep
shooting-
is hard too, right?
In Alberta, you can still buy a general tag,
Okay.
but
Okay.
yeah, a draw is a little more difficult. The memories of sheep hunting. You get into some challenging places, some spectacular places. It's when you shoot a sheep, that's 1 second out of 7 years
Wow. Right.
where you kill a sheep.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of days before that are what memories are made of.
Because he was telling me about. I'm assuming it was one of those sheep hunts where you were doing something you knew better, probably shouldn't be done, and you were following a sheep. Did you shoot it?
It was a goat.
Okay, it was a goat, and you
Yeah.
were following it, and it took you to a spot that was pretty precarious.
Yeah, I was on a cliff.
Like how high?
If I had fallen off that little ledge, it was about 18 inch, maybe even narrower. It was a little ledge. Had I fallen off of there, Fred would have had to pack me out.
Uh huh. So it would have been the end.
I was hyperventilating.
Wow.
Fred was ahead of me. He went around a little corner rock, and I'm hanging on the cliff. And He said, "It's okay. Just get around that corner. You'll be fine." So I'm not fine here. I go, I said, "Don't look down. It's a long ways down. I don't
you
want.
have no-
I don't
Oh
want
my
to go
goodness.
those And it was only like 3 steps. He said, "Once you get those 3 steps and get around that rock, you're going to be fine."
Oh no.
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And you made it.
I made it, and then we did shoot a goat, but we
Mm.
never went on that cliff trail. We went up and over the cliff.
Yeah.
Mm, that makes
So I got a
sense.
couple questions. So like short question, fairly brief answer. What is the most terrified you have been in regards to an interaction with an animal? I imagine it's a bear.
It would be a grizzly. I'll tell you that story tonight, okay? Okay, this one, yeah. I'll tell it to you tonight.
Okay. So there'll be. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm gonna get a better story than you're gonna.
Yeah.
get.
Yeah, you
totally.
will.
Yeah.
You will.
Another one
But
comes back to. Go ahead.
You know, and I guess over the 40 years of sheep hunting, when Fred and I first started hunting, and we've got our traditional spot, we would hunt and hunt and hunt, and if you saw a grizzly track, you say, "Holy cow, look at that." And it was just a track. You'd never see the bear.
Hmm.
And after a decade, more tracks showing up, then you might see a bear over the course of the hunting season. Now, if you go, you'll see a dozen bears in a week.
Really?
I think the populations are growing.
Okay.
Mm.
There's just more of them, a lot more of them.
Okay, so a couple questions. One being a term that's been thrown around a few times here that you talked about that is used on the job site all the time is greenhorn.
Mm.
Where does that term come from? What does that mean? Because is that in relation to a saddle
Well,
horn?
you're looking at one right there.
I love that you said that. Okay, so what is a green? Where did that saying come from? I'm a geek about sayings like that. So where did that come from?
You just don't know what you're doing.
Is it
Yeah.
because of being on a saddle and grabbing the horn on the saddle?
Well,
Is that,
there is that. There is that, and just you don't know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Fred and I, we've been together for so long that we ride into camp, and after you've done it for 40 years, like we don't even talk to one another.
right?
We start unloading the horses and
You do all the
tent
things.
and
Yeah.
do all the things, and
Mhm.
our hunter stands back and.
Or could it be that the term greenhorn comes from the horns on an animal being
Here we go.
brand new, and it's a term that they're green. It's greenhorns, so you're new.
No.
Yeah, it is.
No.
I think you should look it up.
So
We're
this
gonna
is
keep
a
guessing.
common conversation in the shop. Is I get hung up on sayings.
Mhm.
I can't help but hear them. Be like, where'd that come from?
Well,
and
the
then
greenhorn-
Dustin is just he just lays on this incredible story with all
Yeah.
this confidence. That's complete BS, but he sells it so.
But
so
may I
well.
remind you that the last time we played cards, there was a saying, and we guessed, and I made what I thought was a very good guess, and you made fun of me.
Yeah.
And then we looked it up, and I was right.
Kind of.
No,
Uh.
I don't even remember what it was, but I remember it was there, and I was right. Anyway,
Okay, so just to jump back into kind of like trades world a little bit, you also built your own house.
Yes.
In what year?
1977
77.
77.
Okay.
or 78.
So what was that process like for you?
Oh
So back then, did you have to get a building permit? or you
yeah.
just-
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Was there concrete back then?
The Wild Wild West building?
The only reason I did that, I had helped a friend of mine build a house.
Mhm.
That was Jim Clark. Okay. Then it's this is not that hard.
Mhm.
Anyways, I took that project on. Yeah, I was pretty green.
Mhm.
I didn't know completely what I was doing. It was not truly square.
Mhm.
But I did get it done.
Mhm.
I enjoyed that.
Mhm.
Like, framing is a lot of fun. I like that.
Yeah. It's such a visual thing.
Yeah.
And like there's a sense of completion and satisfaction
Mhm.
after a day's work because you can see what you've erected and put together, and you can change it if it's not
Mhm.
quite right,
Yep.
and work through it. It's super gratifying, I
Well,
find.
it comes
Yeah.
together so fast. Like when we
can.
frame, I mean, I just remember I was like, oh, it's a house and it's like almost done, but then it's like not.
Nope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Yeah.
I know
sure.
we got it livable,
Mhm.
but there was a lot of baseboards that had to be
Yeah.
installed,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
like we just had the light bulbs and the
Yeah.
sockets, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
I feel like anyone who
made it
builds
work.
their own house, that's the reality of the next several years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when my wife and I built our first house, I did the design, framed it, and we moved in when it was so unfinished.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no siding, there was no doors. We had a sink in one bathroom. There was no flooring down. The painting wasn't finished. I designed it with this 2-story living room, dining room area, and there was like supposed to be this beautiful timber railing around the top where there's kind of this chalet feel. You go up the stairs and there's this balcony and then doors go into the rooms, and the whole beautiful timber railing didn't exist yet. So it's 2x4 on plywood, and we moved in, and basically the development of our children is what kind of was the catalyst for us to finish different elements of the house. So as they start actually crawling and moving around, I better finish the floor. So they're not like getting slivers from the OSB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I better build the window liners, because now that they're standing and putting their fingers into the acousticeal, I better finish off the kitchen and build the doors and drawer fronts because they're getting into the cutlery
Yeah.
drawer, like all of that stuff. And
Mm.
as much as I didn't want to be that guy, it wasn't till we sold it, 5 years
Mhm.
later, that
That
I
you
finished
finished
the
it.
baseboard in the closets.
That was the one in the cul-de-sac where
Yeah.
Dustin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that house.
Same place.
Yeah. Ours
But
was
yeah,
the
we
same.
had the same thing, just so many unfinished things that you could never get around to.
What style of house was it? Was it single story, two-story,
Two-story.
walkout basement, or like a
No.
split level, or
No, just two-story.
so above ground slab on grade,
Yeah.
like concrete on the main floor?
Yep.
Okay. Nice.
Well, no, concrete basement,
so it was a basement.
and then 2 stories.
Okay. Okay.
Big house.
Yeah.
Way bigger than I should have built.
And and did you do most of that work yourself?
A lot of
A
it.
lot of it.
Did
Lot
you,
of it.
were you
I was a baby.
in that
was-
house? Yeah.
I don't even think you lived in it very long. I
No.
think. Yeah.
No,
because-
that was when interest rates, well, they were at 12%, which at the
Oh my
time
goodness.
seemed reasonable.
Right.
And then they skyrocketed to 18%.
Is it in the
That is
80s?
crazy.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
in that house. I could not afford
Mhm.
the
Mm.
mortgage payments anymore.
I remember my parents talking about that era, and interest rates going through the roof, and
Yeah.
everyone was like scrambling to deal
Mm.
with
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And there was so many people that were walking away from their houses.
Mhm.
I was fortunate. We sold it.
Mhm.
And
Was that around the time that you made the transition from your career as a biologist into ITB? Was that
No.
close?
no,
How
no,
much
that
further
would have
was that?
been in the,
90s.
no,
No.
prior to that, I think.
Come on, Mom.
Come on, it would have been around 1979,
Before Christy was born.
78.
When I was born,
Yeah, when Luke was
Yeah,
born.
No,
you
wait.
were a baby in that house.
No, he's asking about when you switched from being a biologist into working at ITB.
Okay, well, I'm just talking about the house and the mortgage rates.
okay,
Yeah, I'm
Right.
talking
Anyway.
about switching.
Okay, and
When did
then,
you switch to ITB?
I was a biologist for 23 years.
Well, I was
and
16
That was a great career. I loved it.
when you were considering moving our family to northern Alberta. Yes?
So from Lethbridge.
I was not considering
Okay.
it.
It was on the table for
Yeah, it
was
you.
on the
It was
table.
offered and
Yeah.
From
I had
Coldell,
I had a
Alberta.
choice go with Fish and Wildlife. If you want to keep working for us, you have to move to High Prairie.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
our kids were teenagers, and that's like it. Like
Yep.
moving teenagers
Yeah.
to a new environment
It's super
it's
hard.
really tough on them.
Very tough on them. Yeah.
And that I had already become a shareholder at Intercontinental Truck Body, so I had another option for employment if I wanted it.
Mhm.
And I said, no, I'm not going to move.
So you went from flying in a helicopter and counting antelope and seeing eagles attack antelope.
Well, at that point, you
Yeah.
weren't doing that as much, were you?
But
No, but
the
it was-
career that
Yeah.
you loved,
yeah.
that story of an eagle attacking an antelope, that's crazy.
Yep.
But you made the switch from that career that you loved, 23 years, to literally
Private business.
sitting in an office doing what?
I was purchasing manager,
Okay.
so
Parts.
parts.
So there must have been some days where you felt like, what is this?
There might have been
Months of it.
I had no idea.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
was when I quit Fish and Wildlife and moved to ITB and started buying stuff. I was. It's a multi-million-dollar business, huh?
Mhm.
So we would spend on inventory $1,000 or $1 million a month,
Mm.
and I was buying stuff, spending money like a banshee. On I had no idea what I was buying.
Huh.
But
Just the scale.
And I would get home and I said, holy cow, I don't know what I did, but I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
But yeah, after a while, it started to click.
Mhm.
Because you used to come home from work with, like Christy's told me, you bring owls home, you bring deer home,
Mhm.
and to coming home
Yeah.
after spending all day on the phone or ordering parts.
Mhm.
Yeah. Private businesses, well, you know what? It's so
Mhm.
much different than government. Government, they operate so slowly.
Mm.
When I was working for Fish and Wildlife, I needed a new filing cabinet. It took me a year to budget for that thing.
Oh my goodness.
And initially, they even did not approve it. So I had to bought the
Oh my
thing
gosh.
anyway. This is a filing cabinet. Like, if you would go, yeah, you would
Yeah,
go
you would
crazy.
lose your mind.
When you're operating a business, like you don't have a year, you don't have a week,
Oh
you
my
got
goodness.
like a day
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get this stuff.
Yeah.
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 I
So
couldn't handle that.
that was quite an eye opener.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, how
But-
quickly business has to react.
And that was a family business. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long do you do that? So you kind of left your like dream career
Mm.
and you sacrificed that for the benefit of the family. Is that right? Like to keep your kids and your family in the same location so they
Yes.
can finish education and school and not uproot them. And that's a hard choice, but you kind of got your priorities in the right order so that you can take care of your family first and put your own personal passions aside.
Well, I hope so. You
Yeah.
never
Well-
know. Huh? You make decisions based on what's in front of you.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
on that note, I'm going to read what my brother, he put in our family group text, just to give you an idea of how your kids feel about
Mm.
the decisions that you've made for us. This is from my oldest brother, so their oldest.
How many
child.
siblings do you have?
I have 4. So my oldest brother, Dan, and then myself, and then I have a younger brother, Darren, and my youngest sister, Becky. So there's 4 of us. So he says, this is from Dan, one of the best things I learned from Dad, and he never put in these words specifically, but I apply it to my life to this day. How you do anything is how you do everything. The work and effort you put into the little things or the things you don't want to do equate to the effort you do at everything. Basically, put your best effort into everything you do, every job, every task, every friendship, everything, every day. And then my younger brother, I live by that, my life by that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know from marrying into the family that you never complained about that. Like I know I would
No, I-
moan and complain about going from
Well, I
the-
never heard Dad complain about work. I knew
No.
it was hard
Yeah.
and I knew it was a sacrifice, but I never heard him
No,
complain about it.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just the choice to this is what's best for the family. And you didn't do it because, as far as my understanding was, for example, all the promise of, you're going to make a ton more money at this job. Because quite frankly, from what I remember, the business was really struggling and needed help. And you jumped into the family business to help because that's the kind of...
When I did buy shares initially, they
Yeah.
were losing money.
Yeah.
And I did buy shares. It's a family business, and you have to help family where you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and at the same time, if things work out, perhaps there's an opportunity for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. Like
Mhm.
none of my kids
Yeah.
took an interest in it, which is okay. Like,
Mhm.
like I want them to follow the path that
Mhm.
they choose, not the one that I choose
Mhm.
for them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, surprise, she married me, and that meant a whole
I'm
bunch.
not sure I was happy about that.
Exactly.
Could have been
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah, it could have been worse.
But those are good words from my kids. I think they're a little delusional.
I don't know. You're pretty modest.
I think mom should take more credit for what our kids are today than me.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a joint effort.
I think
Sure.
there's so much that's been unsaid that says more than what has been said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Communicates the reality of like doing the right thing is oftentimes the hard thing. It takes, a lot of investment and intentionality and putting your family first, to invest in what the future is and put your own interests and passions aside for that, which is fantastic. I look forward to, I think for people who are watching and listening, the reality is that I'm going to be on the good end of like enjoying conversations with Harold and Nellie and Dustin, Christy in ways that you guys won't get to enjoy because, Harold doesn't want to talk about, all of the glamour and things he's enjoyed through his life because those are personal family matters and things that are there's a domain for that exists in the midst of intimacy, I think, which is really, really special.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people don't realize I'm not a hunter, so when I first came into the house and saw all the trophies, I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I've had friends who are hunters come into your house, they're dumbfounded because
Yeah.
it's a museum. It's a museum of adventures and a lifetime of stories with good friends of like really, and to me, it's when I see those trophies on the wall, it's not just because you saw a beautiful animal.
No.
And, some people have a really hard time with, having taxidermy in the home because they feel like it's cruel and it's heartless. But for you, number one, you love nature more than anyone I know and wildlife.
And respect
And your respect for it and your care for it.
Yeah.
But also those trophies, at least to me, represent like thousands of miles and friendship and doing things with people that you love and going through hard times and overcoming. And so when it's up on the wall, it is a beautiful animal. You've done the taxidermy yourself. Like the amount of value in there for each one and all the stories. I've never heard the story from each one that's in the house because there's tons of them.
It would take us a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, some wonderful memories for me that are etched in my mind forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when our kids took a pair of scissors and started cutting that Alaskan brown bear.
We will not talk about that one. That's for later after
That was one Christmas that our kids won't ever forget. But to your credit, you did not fly off the
you
handle.
didn't murder any of your grandkids.
Your mother-in-law made sure of that.
Yes. But
very quick.
Yeah.
The context.
But everyone did. The house was silent and everyone disappeared because there was something in the air that,
And the story of the Alaskan brown bear is in and of itself, you getting that was a big deal. And I think it took, if my memory serves me right, it took a long time for you to get the hide and to do the taxidermy all yourself. And it was beautiful, and it was mounted beautifully.
And
And-
it's got a haircut.
And our little daughters and their cousins at a Christmas
Yep.
saw that bear
And
and
thought, let's
thought,
give it a
let's
haircut.
give it a haircut. And so they went at the hide with scissors.
Oh. And he
Yeah.
Didn't kill anybody.
Didn't kill anybody.
kill anybody.
Didn't kill-
No,
My mom, it's
No.
just stuff. It's okay.
it's just a bear.
It's
No,
just
it's
a
not just a bear. It's an Alaskan brown bear.
Oh, and if people knew the
Oh,
story and
ew.
the saga
Anyway.
that comes with
Anyway.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been a rich regaling of your past and passion and investment of family and priority. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience. There'll be again, I feel bad for everyone watching and listening because I'm gonna get all the great stories after the fact and the inside scoop on things. So again, thanks for watching and listening, and we're gonna sign off. Thanks so much, Harold, for joining us.
Oh, you're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you.
It was great.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Thanks, everybody.